Hello again. This is Mike McDonald. I'm Mike McDonald, and I am going to try to answer another question that we have. This question is, what is the rapture? We hear about the rapture from preachers, however, you will not find that word in Scripture. But what it refers to is one of the resurrections, one of four of resurrections that are all referred to in Scripture as the first resurrection. We will refer to them as events. So the first event was the resurrection of Christ. He had to be first because he is known as the first fruits of those who are asleep. 1 Corinthians 15:20 and 23 and Revelation 1 verse 5. He received his resurrection body at 3 days after being crucified on the cross and was accepted into heaven and is seated at the right hand of the Father. The second event that we will call the second resurrection is what is referred to by pastors as the rapture of the church. The church refers to all believers who have lived at any time during the time span from Pentecost to the rapture of the church. So all believers who have lived and died or are still alive when the rapture occurs from Pentecost, which is 50 days after the cross, until the rapture itself, all believers are part of what is referred to as the church, no matter where on earth they are. They will receive resurrection bodies at this time. 1 Corinthians 15 verses 22 and 23. John 5 verses 28 and 29. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 14 through verse 17. And Revelation 20 verse 4 through 6. The third event, which is another resurrection, will be the resurrection of all Old Testament believers and tribulation martyrs at the second coming of Christ, at the end of the tribulation. That is when he will deliver his kingdom. That's 1 Corinthians 15 verse 24, and compare that with Revelation 20 verse 4. All Old Testament believers at that time will receive resurrection bodies. Job knew this in chapter 19 of Job. He knew that he was going to, in his body, see his Redeemer. Verses 25 and 26. That will take place for Job and all Old Testament believers after the 7-year tribulation on earth. The fourth event, the fourth resurrection, which is all four of these now are referred to in Scripture as the first resurrection, a resurrection to life. So this fourth event is all believers who will die during the millennium, and those who are still alive will be transformed into resurrection bodies, and they will be that way for the rest of eternity. This is 1 Corinthians 15 verse 24 compared to Revelation 20 verses 5 and 7 through 10. What is known as the second resurrection, or the resurrection to death, is the resurrection of all unbelievers in human history. That will take place also at the end of the millennium. They will receive resurrection bodies, much different from the resurrection bodies to life. They will stand before the great white throne judgment, at which time nobody there will be saved. They will all be condemned. They will be judged. These are all unbelievers in humanity. They will be judged on their good works. They will not be judged on any of their sins, because all sin has been paid for by Christ on the cross. They will be judged on their good works, and they will be trying to attain the goal of being acceptable to God. None of them will make that goal. They will all be rejected. John 5:28 and 29, Revelation 20, verse 5 and 6, and verse 11 and 13. Now, don't confuse resurrection with resuscitation. Resuscitation restores an individual to his mortal body, and he will subsequently die again. John 12, verses 9 and 10 is an example of this. His soul will ultimately separate from his mortal body again. This has happened in Scripture. We've got numerous examples of this. We have an example in Matthew chapter 27, verse 52 and 53. We have another one in Luke chapter 7, verse 13 through 15. Another in Luke chapter 8, verse 52 through 56. And others in John 11, verse 43 and 44. And John 12, verse 9 and 10. All of these are resuscitations, human life returning to the mortal body for a period of time, for a specific purpose. All of these individuals died again. Their soul separated from their mortal bodies again. Resurrection, however, gives the individual a resurrection body so that his soul and spirit will never die again. They will never again be separated from that body. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 54. If you have any questions concerning this, please give us a notice at this channel, and we will try to answer those questions. Thank you very much.